You're now listening to episode 109 from the Shed End. I hope you're all doing well on this Tuesday afternoon or still Tuesday morning for the next 8 minutes or so. Theo, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad at all. Approaching the last kind of stages of a cold, which I've been battling with for the last few days. So just that kind of sniffy feeling up in the nose. But other than that, my body feels fine. So going to make it to the footy tonight, despite this wet and cold, miserable day in London. So looking forward to that. And other than that, also looking forward to the Christmas break, much needed after kind of a busy November and December at work. So much needed. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. As I said before we started recording, it's like that such a busy time when it shouldn't actually be busy. This should be the quietest period of the year for everyone. Anyone who likes to do work at this period of the year is a bar humbug and has never really had Baileys in their coffee, if I'm being honest. But apart from that, I'm all good. Funny story. I mean, I can tell it now because the young girl that was there is fine. But I went to a school nativity for my kids yesterday, one of my kids. And obviously Mary and Joseph was the play. Unfortunately, Mary, it got a bit too much. It was a hot room and she ended up collapsing, passing out halfway through. So I can laugh about it now. She's fine. The school have confirmed she's okay. But it just left Joseph sort of, he was just so, credit to the kids, they sort of carried on with the play afterwards. But, it just left Joseph sort of with the baby on his own. Such a funny moment. It sort of cheered me up a little bit. But let's move from nativities. Let's get into football. Before we do that, make sure we get into the Linktree link in the description. If you click on there, that will take you to all our social accounts, all our podcast episodes as well. And don't forget to subscribe and like this video as well. But I'm going to keep it short for this episode. Let's start with some transfer news, some transfer activity that hasn't really surprised me, if I'm honest. I did think this was going to come about because of the way that the board, the owners are clearly manoeuvring within the club at the moment. But there's been talk of Conor Gallagher being sold. He's been touted, been put in the shop window, if you want to call it that. But what's your thoughts on that? What do you feel? Because I know we both have said at times Conor Gallagher isn't probably the standard or the level that Chelsea need, but he has arguably been one of our best players this season, and that's hands down. We can say that in our midfield that he's been one of the best, and obviously now, almost the captain of Chelsea. So what's your thoughts on us potentially letting Conor Gallagher go, maybe to improve another club in the Premier League?
I still think this is a bit of a strange decision. Like you just mentioned, he's the captain of our club, our third captain after Reece James and Ben Chilwell, who spend more time in the treatment room at the moment than on the pitch. So it would seem like Gallagher is going to remain our captain for the rest of the season. And like you also said, I think maybe bar Cole Palmer, he's been our standout performer, probably our player of the season so far. If the season were to end tomorrow, I think he would be alongside Cole Palmer as the two player of the seasons. There's links of him. I think in the summer he was linked to Everton, to Newcastle, and now there's talks of Tottenham potentially being interested. And there's nothing worse, in my opinion, than strengthening a team like Tottenham. So I wouldn't be in favour of that at all. And there's also, I still think he's a good midfielder. One thing that I still find a bit frustrating, he's not a solid midfielder that can add goals to his game. He doesn't really contribute with many goals. He's more of kind of a box-to-box kind of workhorse style player. Probably the closest thing we've had to an N'Golo Kante, who will just sprint down the pitch, regain the ball, regain possession. And to be fair, I just saw actually right before we started recording this, Squawka, people who aren't familiar with Squawka, they do all the kind of Twitter statistics and kind of throwbacks of what's kind of happened in the league. And they've kind of done a rating system of the best centre midfielders in the Premier League right now based on a Squawka score. I'm not exactly sure what a Squawka score is, but Rodri ranks top at 78%. Gallagher is second at 71%. And then on 69%, you've got Declan Rice and Amadou Onana. And 68% is Yves Bissouma. So I'm not sure how these percentage scores are calculated, but Conor Gallagher ranks second, only behind Rodri, which goes to show that he's had a fantastic start to the season. Poch seems to be a big fan of him. I think remember he came out in pre-season and said, he's one of my player. I'm Gallagher said I'm learning a lot, and then Pochettino, I've got the manager's trust as well. So I'm not really sure why we should look to sell him. I think, on the contrary, we should maybe reward him with a new contract. He is potentially a sellable asset in that way. There's a lot of clubs that are interested, and we could maybe get at least, you think, 35 to 40 million for him. Potentially, I'm not sure what the level of his contract is. He's only got 6 months left, so that might contribute to it being slightly less. But I think before looking to sell Gallagher, there's other players that you could potentially look at to sell, the likes of Maatsen, Chalobah, potentially even Broja, if we're looking to get a new number 9 in January. So yeah, a difficult one, but if I'm completely honest, I'd rather we keep him, and I think we should almost build our midfield around a player like him. On the contrary,
Yeah, I think. I mean, I agree with that 100%. I think there's some truth to that. I still stand by the fact that I don't think he's the level that we need to go forward. But if we're talking currently, I mean, we I keep saying all the time that we play like a mid-table team. We act like a mid-table team. We are a mid-table team. So I think if we're talking about where we are currently at the moment, Conor Gallagher is probably one of those players that you do want in the squad, you do need in the squad. That's going to be able to do a lot of that work. Very similar to what you just said about N'Golo Kante, driving the ball into the box and the energy that he gives as well. I think he's definitely someone that we should be looking to retain whilst we're going through this transitional period. Is he the final product, the final answer? I don't think he is, but I still think he has a role to play at the club, whether that's a rotational basis or he's even proven that he doesn't need to be rotational. He's one of those players that we do miss currently when he's not in the team. So there is that. That's a massive factor. I do think the contractual side of things has probably had a massive issue maybe with resolving, the fact that he's coming to an end of his current contract. I think he's only on about 50 or 60,000 a week at the moment. So if you're looking at the likes of, Reece James, who I think is on over 300,000, Raheem Sterling, who's on that sort of, figure is similar to that as well. I did read the other day that Chelsea as a club are trying to cap the wage bill to 150,000 weekly. So, if you're talking about that, when you can go to Spurs or you could go to, I don't know, another club somewhere else, and they can give you slightly more or even, double, triple what you're currently getting at the moment, it is probably a bit more, lucrative to go there to get that, to secure a bit more money for yourself and also play regular football as much as he is still at Chelsea at the moment anyway. So, I think he's going to go. I think the fact that Pochettino's come out and said that he wants him to stay, he's part of his squad, has almost fell on deaf ears with the owners and for the club, higher up. They don't seem to listen to Pochettino, which is a worry. And he was asked that, I think, in one of his press conferences. It's not up to me, it's up to the club and the player how this materialises now. Do you feel that there's a lack of disrespect or a lack of disrespect, I suppose, from the top to Pochettino in terms of, he's clearly come out. He said, like you said, pre-season, he said, I want this player, I want him to stay here. It seems like the owners, pushing that to one side or turning a blind eye to it and almost just doing what they want to do anyway. Do you feel that's the sort of message that you're getting from the owners?
Yeah, in some sense it is. I think it happened, like we saw Tuchel, and that contributed to him getting the sack or leaving, probably a fallout with the ownership. I highly doubt all those players we signed in January 2023 were players that Graham Potter wanted. So it seems to be that the ownership kind of take control in the windows and sell or buy the players that they think is best for the club or what they think is probably more of a business rather than a football club. So I wouldn't be surprised if when they look at Gallagher, they see him, they see that they could get money out of him. They potentially could see that if he was to sign a contract, he'd also be on a lot more money than he currently is in terms of his weekly wages. Like you said, they want to cap it at 150K a week. So I think he is a sellable asset in that way. And given that he kind of see the club as a business, they want to probably sell him, which probably will infuriate and frustrate Pochettino, who sees him as the captain, who sees him as a player that, he wants to build his midfield around. There's still question marks on if Gallagher will retain his spot in midfield once Lavia is fit again, a player that we've invested a lot of money to get, and we've given a big contract to, and it's meant to be a very exciting, promising young prospect. But yeah, I think it seems like should things carry on like this, and Pochettino's come out and said, I want to keep him, he's a player I trust, and then if the manager's worth, then sell him. That wouldn't sit well with Chelsea fans, with Pochettino, with Pochettino's team as well, his the other coaches, and probably with other Chelsea players as well. They're learning from Gallagher that he's the captain, he's the one probably giving the halftime team talks. So yeah, it's not going to sit well at all. Whether it happens in January or in the summer, I'm not sure, but like I said, I think we should reward him for his hard work and give him a new contract. And there's other players out there in the club, out on loan potentially, or even currently in the squad that we could sell before looking at to sell Gallagher.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think he's someone that is definitely Sounds strange saying this, but he's clearly one of the older, maybe more experienced players in the dressing room. So you are right. There's going to be players that have come through, this season, the back end of last season, that are probably looking up to Conor Gallagher and seeing how far he's come through the ranks at Cobham, and he's now captain of a club like Chelsea. To see him go through those stages of his career, to see where he is at such a young age still as well. Players will look up to that. Players older than Gallagher are probably still having the respect that they have for Conor Gallagher as well. So, I stand on it. I don't think he's the end result for us. I don't think come the end, if we want to be competing for Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues, he is the answer. I don't think that. But I think where we are currently at the moment, he's so pivotal to that. He's so key and crucial to how we're trying to build a team at the moment. And if we do get rid of him, there's no guarantee Lavia comes in or, someone else comes in and does that job just as much as Conor Gallagher's doing at the moment. So that is a worry for me. Now, if he was in bad form or he was in and out of the team, I'd understand. But the fact that Pochettino has probably used him more so than any other manager has, I think, whilst I've been at Chelsea, tells you that he's clearly in the manager's plan. So it's alarming for me that there's a massive disconnect between owner and obviously the Paul Winstanleys and everyone else underneath the ownership of Clear Lake and Maurizio Pochettino. That's a worry, because if we're not on, if our visions aren't aligned, I say we, but Pochettino and the club aren't aligned, we're going back to Thomas Tuchel, we're going back to Graham Potter, we're going back to Jose Mourinho almost, where they want one thing, the ownership want another thing, and it just never works. And ultimately, the manager goes because the owners are there. So that does worry me. There's been talk about Madueke again. Obviously, he might leave. You mentioned Chalobah, Bro could be on that list as well. So there are players that we can get rid of. I think
Lukaku as well.
Lukaku, we forget about him, but I think for me the ultimate thing with Conor Gallagher is, I think, like you said earlier, it's full profit. He's, if we sell him, we know we're going to get the profit from him, and that's obviously going to help balance out those books to comply with FFP as well. So there's a lot to consider in there as well. It'd be interesting to see how that pans out. Again, I know it's mixed reviews from the fans as well online, so it'd be interesting. But let us know your comments in the section below about what you think about Conor Gallagher. Should he stay or should he go? Lewis Hall, another one very quickly. Let's talk about Lewis Hall, who currently on loan at Newcastle at the moment. There's been a lot of talk this week about Lewis Hall, whether he's obligation to buy from Newcastle's perspective is actually an obligation to buy. I think there was a thing on social media that he deleted his goodbye Chelsea message or something along those lines at the weekend. Reading into it, I think Ben Jacobs and a couple of other journalists have come out since then and said basically that it is 99.9 certain that Lewis Hall will sign for Newcastle at the end of the season on a permanent. It isn't appearance based in terms of the contractual obligation. It's more of a where a performance, team performance obligation. So Newcastle basically, I think, have to finish above Chelsea, which isn't hard. In order for Lewis Hall to sign. So do you think that's a thing that we kind of shot ourselves in the foot with? Because realistically, we could actually do with Lewis Hall in that team right now.
Yeah, in hindsight, when you look at the summer transfer business, we decided to keep Ben Chilwell, who's injury prone, Mark Corella, who's being played out of position at times at right back, and when he has played at left back, he's looked a bit shaky or inconsistent. And then we've decided to keep Ian Matson, who's hardly had any game time whatsoever and is now being linked with an exit in January. So I think Lewis Hall would have walked right into this team, and the kind of cameo appearances he had towards the back end of last year's season, he probably was probably one of our best players. I know that maybe he pushed for the move in the summer, given he was a boyhood Newcastle fan, and maybe Eddie Howe sold him the project. But before then, there was also talk of a loan to Crystal Palace, which I don't think would have included such a buyback clause or a buyback option. But yeah, I feel like I'm still under the impression that it will be made permanent in the summer. I think Newcastle will decide to keep him, and I think probably a fee was already agreed in the summer. But it's just still a massive kick in the teeth for Chelsea fans when you look at Newcastle's two fullbacks being Lewis Hall and Tino Livramento, both performing, both had some really good games, I think, against PSG and in the Champions League. Sure, they're out of Europe now, but they still really excelled. And then meanwhile, we've got Chelsea. We're playing centre backs and fullback positions that are struggling as well. So it's frustrating. I mean, if we were to get him in back in the summer, it would feel like a completely new signing, and I think it would spell question marks over Cucurella's future, or maybe whether Ben Chilwell kind of comes back into the team and regains his place straight away. But again, Ben Chilwell, another one we spoke at length about. Reece James, Chilwell's in a very similar position with his injury record. But I'd love to have him back. I think I've always been impressed by him. I've a player that I've always respected, given that he just gets the job done. There's no kind of drama with him off the pitch. No silly tattoos, haircuts, nothing like this. I like that type of player. But I think the truth is, I think he will stay at Newcastle, and it will be made permanent in the summer.
No, it's looking very likely. I think. I mean, just looking back and thinking about some of the players that we've lost on stupid, ridiculous, transfers over the last decade or so, and you just think back and look at how many of them have actually gone on to either progress even better than we expected them to, or they've gone on and won things, with other clubs. So it's a worry. I think, looking back, we should definitely maybe just had that loan without the obligation, the mandatory fee. I don't think we should have had that in there. I think maybe we should have had just a loan deal and assess things in the summer. And like you said, maybe Lewis Hall, being a Newcastle fan, his family, I think, are Newcastle fans as well. Maybe, the move was just too good to give up. Do you get the opportunity to play for the club that you support again? Probably not. So, you can't fault Lewis Hall for that at all. But I think from a selfish perspective, from us, from Chelsea, like you said, Cucurella position, Chilwell's injured. We lost Azpilicueta, who could play those, left or right. And he was someone that was very crucial at times in the squad, albeit his legs had gone by the end. But yeah, I mean, Lewis Hall for me is someone that will go on to be, I put him in the same category as Rico Lewis for Man City. He's one of those players you can just see there's a lot of potential there. So it'll be interesting to see how that plans out. I'll be very surprised he ends back up at Chelsea, though. I don't see it.
And why would he want to come back to Chelsea as well?
That was what I was getting to, sort of. Just didn't want to say in those words. But let's move on quickly to the Club World Cup with the announcement from FIFA that there'll be a 32-team Club World Cup from 2025 that will include Chelsea and Man City. Liverpool and Man United will miss out on the new format of the Club World Cup. So this will be played, I think, from sometime in June. Is it June? I got that wrong. Yeah, 15th of June to the 13th of July. So it's a massive, it's almost, I think you said it to me, it's almost a pre-season. This is what clubs are going to have to treat it like. So it kind of has, I think it's got the format basically will be, so yeah, it'll be the Champions League winners during the 4-year qualifying cycle. They will qualify automatically. So that means obviously from the last couple of Champions Leagues, Chelsea, Real Madrid and Man City have already booked their spaces for the one that will be played in July, in June and July in USA. There's a lot of prize money to up at stake as well. But what's your thoughts on this? Is it more just a money making thing from FIFA? They want more money to be generated. They want to get the footballing world to pay more to see things and all the rest of it, or is it just an opportunity for clubs to try and win more trophies?
I think it's a glorified pre-season with a prestigious bit of silverware at the end of it. Probably more than these Audi Cups or Emirates Cups that you usually get in pre-season up in Singapore or the US. That being said, I think it will be entertaining. I think neutrals or non kind of fans that would typically watch these tournaments will watch it, because let's be honest, no one's going to watch Fluminense against Man City in the next couple of days, or whichever game
I was going to watch
in Saudi. Yeah, I mean, depending on what time of day it is, maybe I'll keep track of the score, but you just know for a fact City will probably watch it. When we won the Club World Cup against Palmeiras, I think I was buzzing, obviously, but no one else really cared, and people just said it's a Mickey Mouse trophy or whatever. But when you look at the quality of the teams in this, so clubs that are confirmed via the UCL pathway: City, Madrid, Chelsea. Then by the ranking, Bayern Munich, PSG, Inter Milan, Benfica, Porto. Then there's 4 more clubs to be confirmed in Europe. Just some big clubs.
Oh yeah,
really, really big clubs.
Yep.
And obviously it's going to be tough for the players because their season will probably wrap up end of May. They'll probably get a week break and then back to train for this in the US. and then it will finish, depending if you qualify a group or how the format works, probably beginning of July, mid-July.
Yeah.
Then you think they'd be given a bit more time to rest, to go on holiday to their Mykonos, to their Dubais, wherever they go. And then it's back to pre-season to start training for the league, end of July time. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a draining summer, a really busy summer, but I think it's exciting. I know it's going to generate a lot of FIFA. And like I mentioned, it's from those teams. Whether you're a fan of those teams or not a fan, you'll probably keep an eye on those scores and pay attention to the tournament.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a bit more of a spectacle, but one that I'll probably watch this time.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. I think unless your team previously has been in the Club World Cup, you don't really necessarily. You might watch the final, if it's Liverpool or City. I think did I watch the last one? I don't think I did. But when it was Chelsea, obviously, we were there. We were all there watching it. We all wanted to win it. We was all invested because our club, our team was in there. And I do get. I agree with you. I do get that they FIFA are trying to obviously get more people involved in the Club World Cup, which is fair enough. I just, my worry is that we already talk about too many games already in the season. I think I read that there's going to be a delay to the new season in the sort of 25-26 season. I think it will be pushed back by a month to allow for this to happen. So it already has almost a knock-on effect. We'll then have a knock-on effect at the Christmas period again, which will then have a knock-on effect with the later part of the season as well. And we also have international tournaments coming up in between that as well. We have to remember, I'm trying to think when the next World Cup will be. So it was last year, so my maths is really rubbish. So 28.
Summer 2026.
26, exactly. So
in the US, actually. So it's probably a warm-up for that.
Yeah. So it's kind of just a lot of football. Thinking those next 2 years from, 24 to 26, there's a lot of football to be played. And we're already seeing crazy LCL. ACL. Can't get my acronyms right. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of those at the moment happening up and down. I think there was one for Real Madrid only at the weekend again as well. So that is a worry for me. But I suppose you would plan ahead and make sure you've got the squad depth to deal with that. Hopefully we do. Some of these potentials might be very ready to start for us. So I'm looking forward to it. I think is what I'm saying. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we all will watch it. It's going to be interesting. You could get some big ties. You could get like an Al Nassr versus a Chelsea, something like that. I think there's a few things that maybe the Football Association could do to work on helping the players, potentially scrapping the Carabao Cup. I know we're about to preview the Carabao Cup quarterfinal now, but I think it's an option. Or you do something like in the Olympics, you can only play 3 senior players in the Carabao Cup alongside the youngsters.
Yeah.
I think that could be a good option because it's a kind of a tournament that could really foster some youth, develop them, but still have that bit of senior figures or leadership alongside them. That's something I'd be all in favour for. Like you said, if it's pushing things back by a month, that means that you're going to have to catch up on all these games throughout Christmas, January, February, and then you've got the World Cup the following summer.
Yeah.
So I'm sure FIFA have planned this, but it still seems like it's going to be a very busy 2025 and 2026 calendar years.
Yeah, that shout's really good around. It's almost like the Papa John's Trophy, isn't it? Where I think we use our development squads, or the most majority of Premier League teams use their development squads to go and play, I don't know, Crewe Alexander or Swindon, whoever it is. And I think that would work. Maybe combine the two. Maybe have a Papa John's Carabao Cup trophy and do it somewhere like that. But I think something's gonna have to give. We're seeing obviously Tom Lockyer as well. For Luton, another what looked like another cardiac arrest at the weekend. So there's loads of things just happening. I think with and players are being pushed through and put through a lot more. The bodies can only take so much. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But I am looking forward to the Club World Cup.
Yeah, Papa John's and Carabao. Those two together will cause a lot more cardiac arrests, I think.
Very, very true, actually. Very true. It's probably not the two best sponsors you want for a sport, do you? But who am I to say anything? Let's move over to the Carabao Cup. Is it still called the Carabao? It's EFL Cup?
I think it always changes. I think it's still the Carabao for the time being.
I hope so, because that's what's on our images for the match day today. Right, let's talk about, because obviously, I looked at this morning, and we are actually, should West Ham, I think they've got Liverpool. I think that's tomorrow night. Now, should West Ham do us a massive favour and beat Liverpool, we are in the perfect position to get some silverware this season. We really are. It would only, if we can beat Newcastle, it leaves the other ties is Everton and Fulham. Although Everton, okay, they're looking very good, and Fulham, to be fair. But Port Vale, Middlesbrough is the other tie as well, amongst our tie against Newcastle. Now, I honestly think Jurgen Klopp, I don't know why I'm already thinking about the final, getting there already, because we've got to beat Newcastle first. But I'm already thinking if we can beat Newcastle, we can beat whoever we get in the semis. If we can avoid Liverpool and Liverpool get knocked out, this is our perfect chance to redeem something of this terrible season, part 2 of the last season. What's your thoughts going into this game? I think Pochettino was asked yesterday, is this the most important game of his career, his Chelsea career? He didn't really answer it, but I would probably say yes, it is. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I had a little rummage through Twitter and Instagram this morning and looked at what other Chelsea fans were feeling ahead of kickoff, and a lot of them were echoing that kind of question of saying it is the most important game of our season. It's probably our only chance to get some silverware. It's probably Pochettino's only chance maybe to salvage something from this season and almost save his job if the things were to go downhill, January onwards or further downhill than they already have. He would at least be able to say, I'm in the Carabao Cup final. I'm got a chance to win trophy, or I'm going to win silverware. We saw Mourinho say that one of his biggest frustrations or regrets that Tottenham was being sacked a week before the Carabao Cup final. So it's a trophy and a bit of silverware that managers do take seriously. And like you just said, the teams out there in the quarterfinals, Everton, Fulham, Port Vale, Middlesbrough, West Ham, Liverpool, on paper, if we just play our football, we play the best of our abilities, we can beat any of those sides. Liverpool, 2 seasons ago, we played them twice in cup finals.
True.
You could argue we were the better team in both those cup finals, and we were very unlucky to lose on penalties. So we do have what it takes to kind of go right to the wire and compete with these teams. That being said, it's going to be very tough at Newcastle. I'm pleased it's at home because I feel like St. James's Park, it'd be a whole different game and I wouldn't give us any chance. But it's really a question now of 90 minutes or potentially 90 minutes then penalties, of just giving it our all, treating it like we would treat maybe a Champions League quarter-final perhaps. And because that's what a mid-table team now we need to kind of compete for. It's what it is. It's our equivalent of a Champions League quarter-final. Newcastle will want to win it as well. I think what's great with Eddie Howe, it seems like any trophy or any competition they're in, they take it seriously. So expecting a tough game. They've had their injuries. I would really hope we would have learned from mistakes against them in the fixture a couple of weeks ago where we lost 4-1 and we redeem ourselves. And like I say, every time there's a big game at Stamford Bridge, the crowd are going to need to play their part. Yeah, they really have to play their part. We spoke just before kind of how Stamford Bridge, sections of the stadium, it's very dire, it's very lackluster. It's kind of people just there to kind of tick a box in their London bucket list of seeing a Premier League game. Whereas this game now, I know it's Carabao Cup tickets might be more accessible midweek, they're cheaper, but we need to play our part. We really do need to play their part. I'll be there, I'll be sat there, and I'll be really cheering the boys on. It's an important game, and if we win this, we're one more game after that away from a trip to Wembley back in February, and that's what all Chelsea fans live for in a way. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think this is the most important Maurizio Pochettino match he's ever going to have currently as Chelsea manager. Even in his England managerial career, to be, I don't think he's won a trophy at Southampton or Spurs, did he? So, I think this is his...
Champions League final at Tottenham.
Yeah, he bottled it, Spursy. But I think if you can get some silverware, I think not to say, because he kept being called an elite manager in the press conference yesterday, and I'm not saying that he's not an elite manager, but to manage 3 times in England and not win anything, I think you have to win something surely in England as well to deem yourself an elite manager. So for me, this is the most perfect opportunity for Pochettino. And I know we've got Wolves, on the 24th, but this is for me the time when you can't really swap and change this squad now. There's been some really convincing moments in games, the last couple of games that we've watched, and there's been some really poor parts, but the parts that we, take away the good from the bad, you don't want to start disrupting it and bringing in certain players and taking them back out. I think you've got to keep the structure of the team as it is, I think, in my opinion. But like you said, Newcastle's going to be up for this, they've got injuries just like we have, but they seem to churn out the results still, and I think that's what's worrying. I know they've dipped in and out in the Premier League, but like you said, tournament football, and I always say this, it's just who wants it more on the night, who wants it more in 90 minutes, who wants it more if it goes into extra time, or I think goes straight to penalties now, but who wants it more in the penalty shootout? Who's confident to step up and take the penalties. So I am nervous, but I'm also optimistic in this game. I feel that I think being at Stamford Bridge will help us massively. I think I agree with you. The fans that are going, yourself and everyone else, need to be as loud and as vocal as possible, because and in the right way as well. When I say that, I don't mean boo the players off. I don't mean shout abuse at them. Just be the 12th man on the pitch, I think, or 12th woman on the pitch as well. Let's move over to your predicted lineup. Let's see who you would go with. I've just looked at a predicted lineup here from one of the apps that I use, and it's worrying. I'll tell you what it is afterwards, but I'm hoping you won't be able to see it, but everyone else on the screen currently as we're recording this will. So this is where your memory's got to be spot on, and you've got to remember who you've picked and where you've put them, so it aligns with the image. So I've moved over now to where you've got your team. Let's start with the goalkeeper and then go from right back and onwards from there.
Yeah, no real surprises with the goalkeeper. George Petrovic had a relatively easy first appearance against Sheffield. I think he only made one save from a free kick, but other than that, it was quite a comfortable afternoon for him. I think we're both quite excited to see what he can offer during this period where Sanchez might be injured for 6-7 weeks.
Yeah.
So he really needs to step up and show what he's worth, and potentially, like we mentioned on the previous pod, be our number one going forward, with the question mark still over Sanchez's future. Centre backs, I've gone with Badiashile and Levi Colwell. I think they're both two left-footed centre backs, which could be an interesting pairing. But I think it's type of game where we might be worth resting Silva, keeping him for the Wolves game on Christmas Eve, and kind of going with this more young defensive partnership that might be our kind of go-to duo going forward in the coming seasons. Left back, I've gone with Ian Maatsen. I don't think he started a game since maybe one of the other Carabao Cup games against Wimbledon, Brighton, or even Blackburn. I'm not even sure he started the Blackburn one. But again, I think type of game we've got to play your fullbacks in their natural positions. So I've gone with Maatsen at left back and Malagusto at right back. He's back in training. He's back in the matchday squads. He came on, I believe, even for I think 2 or 3 minutes against Sheffield. So I think type of maybe sign that he could start this one, and type of game where you need your fullbacks. You need type 2 agile, quick fullbacks that can bomb up the pitch, offer service to those more attacking players. And that's why maybe you'd rather not have the Disessis and the Colwells at fullbacks, but have your 2 more natural ones. Midfield, I'm going with Caicedo, Enzo, mainly due to the lack of options we have in midfield with Ugochukwu, Lavia injured. Captain Gallagher as the number 10, with Palmer, Sterling as the wingers, and Armando Broja, who again didn't have the best game against Everton, but I want to bring him back in the team and see what he can do. That being said, I feel like Poch will still go with Jackson.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't. Did we speak about the miss? I don't remember speaking about the miss, that Broja, the Broja miss on.
Yeah, I feel like it would be blown up more had we been drawing or losing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it kind of went under the radar because we were winning.
But
Yeah.
I mean, look, out the two, I'm still sticking with Armando Broja to be my number 9. I think, and I like your lineup. I do. It makes complete sense. My worry with Colwell and Badiashile, not that the fact that they're both left-footed centre backs. I just feel that Badiashile looks so more comfortable with Thiago Silva next to him, and I'm going back on my own words by saying that we have to rest him. But I do think these are the games that we should be playing Thiago Silva. I've gone slightly different with my lineup. The only difference I think is Thiago Silva and Badiashile are my centre backs. I've still gone with Ian Maatsen at left back. Obviously Petrovic is in goal. Gusto as right back. The 2 midfield, everything else is the same going forward. The midfield and the attackers are exactly the same as what you've gone for as well. I do get the sense though that we will see Mudryk in this team, and we possibly will see. I think we'll see Mudryk, and I'm half convinced we're going to see Ian Maatsen probably play some role higher up the pitch as a more attacking role rather than a left back. I think we'll see Dizazi and maybe Colwell at left back, Dizazi right back. This is what I'm just thinking Pochettino might do. This is why I said at the very start of this part of the podcast, don't switch things up too much, because I don't think Newcastle will do that. I think they'll stick to what they know, what will get them through the game. But I think we'll see Nicholas Jackson as well. I do. I think he'll switch it back to Nicholas Jackson. He'll probably prove that he gave Brozier the chance to play a role and didn't really take it. And I think he'll stick with Jackson, who, to be fair, I think is it seven goals this season, maybe a couple of assists. I mean, take away the hat trick, but in terms of the goals that he scored in the Premier League, I think people will say that he's got a relatively good record so far in the Premier League. Why not start him?
Yeah, some of those goals still. You'd hope that you're fortunate he scored, but it's just happens. I don't want to go Sheffield as well.
The tapping.
But you'll take it. Sometimes you just want someone to be there in the right place and tap it in.
Yeah.
No, but I'd agree. I think we might see Maatsen more in an advanced position, higher up the pitch. Could be the Disasi and Colwell as the fullbacks potentially. Newcastle might not change. They can't really afford to change given their injuries as well. And it could also be an opportunity for Chelsea finally to bring Nkuku back into the team off the bench.
Yeah.
Pochettino's hinted at it in his press conference yesterday. I think we could see him for at least 20 minutes, you'd think. Don't really know why he didn't play against, or at least come on against Sheffield. You think we're in a winning position, bring him on for the final 10. On the contrary, if we were in a winning position, bring him on so he can try to get us a goal. So it kind of felt like either situation he would have played, but he didn't. Whereas Madueke is back in the match day squads and back in training. So another player that could feature, and another player with a lot of question marks about his Chelsea future. So he's wanting to take the chances now ahead of Christmas and ahead of January to be able to prove to the manager that he's still got a future at the club.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think we said before about Nkuku before the Sheffield United game that we would give him at least, half an hour, 20 minutes. And I was surprised as you to see him not come on. I think 2-0 up, maybe give him even 10 minutes, just give him a run out. I think a lot of the fans before kickoff was expecting to at least see him, get a small cameo just to give a bit, maybe Stamford Bridge a bit of a lift as well. But I do want to see him. I think Pochettino, what he said yesterday, especially going back to the Sheffield game, was the game was already won. He didn't want to. I think he said he had 1% doubt in his head, and he said if I've got 1%, I won't risk him, which is fair enough. He's come back from a big injury, but I think at some point you're going to have to take that risk anyway. So if it's not the Sheffield game, it's going to have to be the Newcastle game tonight. If it's not tonight, you're going to have to do it on the 24th against Wolves. There's going to have to be some point where you're going to have to just, risk and reward. You're going to have to see which one's the better option. So I want to see him feature tonight. I don't want to see Madueke start, but I do think he'll make the bench. I think he's got a lot of. I remember what I think I said to you in the summer. I think he's one of those players that is really good until the final pass, that final third, that moment of getting the ball into the box to an attacker. He hasn't developed that, so I wouldn't be against another. This won't happen, but I wouldn't be against a loan move for him. But again, that's David Ornstein's already come out and said that won't happen. Chelsea have come out and said that he won't. He'll either be sold or he'll stay. But going back to tonight's game, I think we have to stick with a solid squad, which we've both gone for. It'd be interesting if he does start Maatsen because again, the player that's out on the way out. Obviously, I'd assume he'll start Conor Gallagher as well. But I do think Petrovic has to have a really good game. Callum Wilson, I think, will probably be their striker for Newcastle. I think Isak's injured, so I think it'd be Callum Wilson. Obviously, Anthony Gordon is another one that can cause a threat in and around the goal. So, prediction time. Let's go for our predictions.
It's a tough one. I said, if should we get to the semis? Is that still 2 legs, or is it now 1 leg?
Oh, it's a good question. I think it's 1. I'm not 100% sure.
I know they've changed it recently, and I also know I think VAR only comes into place in the semis. I think.
Yeah. So it won't be available tonight, but I think semi-finals it is. I think.
Yeah, you just know there's going to be a bit of VAR controversy or non-VAR controversy, perhaps if there's like a disallowed goal or a offside that shouldn't have been an offside. But I'm going to be quite optimistic. I'm going to say 2-1 Chelsea. I think, like I mentioned, and you mentioned, the fans need to play their part, be the 12th man or woman, and really spur the team on. So I think if the fans do that, I think we'll be able to get the 2 goals and just about beat Newcastle at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah. I think we're going to get a massive score. I don't know why I said this to someone last night. I think it's going to be like 3-2. Very similar to, I don't know if anyone got to see it, but the Leicester Birmingham City game last night, very end-to-end. In the end, anyway, it was very end-to-end, mainly in the second half. I feel we're going to get something similar tonight. I really do. I feel that both teams will want this. You know, Eddie Howe, as much as, you know, he's done so much and got Newcastle back into the Champions League, he is starting to probably feel a bit of that pressure, you know, being kicked out of the Champions League, or knocked out the Champions League. They haven't really had the best of run in the league as well. You know, they're going to want some sort of silverware at some point, and they were so close last season. So I think they'll want that. But I think for some weird reason, we tend to turn up certain points in our season, and I feel that this will be one of them. And I think it'll be 3-2. I think we'll get the win, but it'll be hard. I think it'll be a hard, tough battle between two teams that are desperate to get some silverware.
Yeah, and we often done well against the big teams at Stamford Bridge this season. Often put in a good shift in performance, and Newcastle nowadays are a big team.
Oh yeah.
So hoping for the same kind of performances we played against Tottenham, against Liverpool, City, the 4-4 draw, and as well against Arsenal. For a large majority of the game, we look like the better team. So if we kind of replicate those performances, I'm confident we can get some goals and hopefully take it to penalties or win the game in 90 minutes.
Yeah, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Let us know your thoughts online. If you hit our Linktree link in the description, that will take you to the social accounts as well. Yeah, I mean, we need the points. We need the trophy. We could do some points as well if anyone's got any spare. But yeah, I think we definitely need to go out there with the mindset that we can win the game. I think what I don't want to see is us go 1-0 down or even 2-0 down and our heads drop. The crowd will suddenly become quiet. There'll be a bit of tension. Substitution's going to be key in this game as well. We have to time those correctly just in case. I don't think there is extra time, but I think I'm hoping we haven't really got many. We haven't spoken about penalty takers, but we haven't really got many penalty takers. Maybe Cole Palmer, maybe Raheem Sterling,
Enzo perhaps. But you think one of those 3 players might get subbed off in 90 minutes. So.
Exactly. So my thing is, I think if we're gonna, if the game's got to play out to at least 70, 75, maybe 80 minutes, depending on how the scoreline is. But if it's 2-1 to Chelsea, I don't want to see any of those players go off. However tired they are, I want them, because there are, I suppose, our top 3 penalty takers. I think we'd have to say. I can't really think of anyone else in the team. Maybe Gallagher. I don't think I've ever seen him take a penalty. But
I think Silva took one against Liverpool, I think, in their League Cup final and scored it. But again, you probably have him 5th or 6th in the pecking order to take one.
Running up towards the penalty spot or something. But yeah, I think we just need to have the mindset of winning the game in 90 minutes and not relying on penalties, which is what I'm trying to say. I think is, let's not get to penalties and start panicking about who's taking it. And, we send up, I don't know, Malo Gusto or Ian Matson, someone who I don't think I've ever seen take a penalty before. But fingers crossed anyway, fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Okay, well, that's episode 109 out the way. Hopefully we progress into the next round. Theo, as always, thank you very much. Enjoy the match. Cold night in Stamford Bridge, I'm sure. But yeah, kickoff's at 8 o'clock. So let's hope by the time we record the next episode, we're actually talking about the next semi-final that we're potentially going to be and one step away from Wembley, which is the ultimate goal this season for us. As always, make sure you share, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and as I said, Linktree link in the description that will take you to the social accounts. Until next time, thank you very much, and we'll be back soon.